away medals.
Now, down in the bottom left position, we have got the purple Zerg player, currently 1-0 up. It is Shibbxyz. And his opponent spawning in the top right. The green Terran player, it is Distan.
All right. So, welcome to Neoplanet S, everyone. For those of you maybe in the UK scene not so familiar with this map, you can see the two gold bases in the middle of this map sort of forming a circular, I want to say a circular pit of death, because no one really ever takes these bases unless your name happens to be Jaedong. Very, very difficult to take. Also, there are no watchtowers on this map, which means that typically you see one player going one way around this big circle in the middle and another player going the other way. And you get a lot of really interesting dynamic situations where armies are both caught out of position. You get very base racy kind of situations as well. In matchups, to be honest, of all races. It's a very dynamic map. And as per the Madal's curse, we are going to see two base play here.
Of course, that is always what happens on Neoplanet S, so I have no idea why you'd even joke about something like that.
It wasn't a joke, it's just true. We are going to see some serious two base action here, and it's probably going to be two base expanding into 5, but you know, has to start with 2.
It always does, and that's. I'm glad you now accept that, Josa, that it is a 2-base map. At least it should be, anyway. Now, anyway, we've got the spawning pool coming down here from Shibbxyz. He hasn't taken his gas yet, but spawning pool before hatch is not the usual build against Terran, as any Zerg players and, well, most players will know. It's generally a 15 hatch into a 16 pool, so this is already a slight variation here from Shibbxyz, being a little bit safer, coming down to take this hatchery, keeping an eye out for the gas to see if it's going to be that 3-roach rush again, though.
Yeah, definitely, and he's not, well, we will be keeping a very, very close eye on that gas indeed, and we'll see if a Roach Warren does end up popping out for him there. Of course, he doesn't need any gas to actually make the Roach Warren, but he does need gas to make roaches, so we'll just be seeing if he is actually going to be going for that again, and yes, he is. There is the Roach Warren, round about the gas geyser in the southern part of his main base. So, Shibbxyz, once again, going for this Roach aggression.
Now this is going to be going up against the Reaper expand coming down from Distan, and unfortunately for him, roaches are very, very good against Reapers. Ridiculously good. And it also means there's going to be less Marines down due to the fact that Reapers come out, and therefore the roaches, if they do decide to push across, are going to be in a really good position. But Distan delaying his natural quite consistently by doing this.
And he's just putting it on the low ground.
Yep.
If a bunker had started right now at the entrance of the natural, and a couple of units went into it, I would have said, okay, maybe he'll be able to defend against this, or at least pick off a roach or two before they can do any considerable damage. As it stands, though, I'm really not sure anymore, and with the command center on the low ground, and no additional units to defend here, Distan's natural is going to be delayed by so much. Yeah, those two Zerglings have done everything they already need to do with or without the roaches, and I think Shibbxyz actually recognized this. Roach Warren's complete. Guess how many roaches are out on the field? Exactly 3. So he's going to be, yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a pretty rough follow-up.
Yeah, and remember, of course, look at this. The command center still isn't getting reconstructed. There's finally an SCV getting pulled down. There's a grand total of 2 Marines and a Reaper on the field. No more being pumped out either. And that's not enough to be able to defend this. The Reaper now moving back forward again. And the Roach is coming over the top, just as you said earlier, Josa. You get going either side round this central area, and then you get some very interesting play. The bunker trying to come out, but it's just not there in time, and the roaches are now moving in.
Oh, and the roaches one-shotting the Marine, or one-shotting the SCVs. The natural does not even go up, and this is a disaster. Although 2 of the roaches are attacking the 3rd one, I'm not sure why there, but managing to pick off an additional Marine. SCVs coming in to repair. And a mule even being pulled off the line, but he's not going to be able to do too much right now. The reactor desperately trying to get repaired by these SCVs, but the roaches can simply target them. One of the roaches might go down to these Marines. Has to be very careful. Red health, that one. Needs to shuffle that to the back there. Good micro coming out there from Shibbxyz, but he is once again at 47 supply to the 19 of Distan, and I think this might be a 2-0.
Yeah, Distan is trying to get out that tank rapidly, but already having lost 9 workers identical to the first game, and having his natural delayed hugely, he's actually in a worse situation than before, and that's a really important thing to note. Moving back now as that tank pops out, but yeah, Distan, he's in a lot of trouble here.
Oh
He
my
also lost the
god.
Reaper that was in the main.
He has lost 118 resources to 950 in game number 2. Distan has not been able to switch up his play this game to take into account that early aggression. Still went for that expansion into that siege tank, and the siege tank just doesn't arrive in time to deal with this. He needed to get the bunker on the low ground much sooner. The natural expansion has been delayed for so long, and unfortunately I think Distan is in a worse position this game than he was last game.
I'd agree with you, and it's all because this natural isn't down. Remember last game, the expansion came quicker, and Distan just had to lift it for a while. It was already an orbital command, so he could catch up in terms of the muling and things like that, the energy already banking, but that's all been delayed this game. The SCV production has been delayed this game, and that is causing such an issue right now. And of course, Shibbxyz, he's got his third already coming up here. He's got his lair. He doesn't yet have any evolution chambers down, though, so he isn't going to be pumping out those upgrades quite yet. But he's going to be able to go for a massive push in the next couple of minutes if he chooses to.
And I think this massive push, I'm not actually sure how good it would be if he just came straight up with it, because I do anticipate the siege tank on the high ground here from Distan to be able to do an awful lot of damage. And he has got the bunker down, he's got marines in it. A couple more marines as well means that while Distan could technically fall away and crumble very quickly if the bunker falls and the siege tank falls, for example, he does have a very high DPS defense, and that's something that Shibbxyz has to take into account if he tries to effectively just bum rush this. However, he's going to be going for a similar strategy to last game, and I really like it. He says, well, I know at this point you're going to be turtling up just a little bit. I know I'm significantly ahead on worker supply right now. He's 61 to 21 up, and he's just going to be going for the Spire. So that negates the splash damage from the siege tank, allows him to move in and out of the main base to harass if necessary, and if a couple more workers go down here, this economic deficit could be insurmountable.
There is, of course, the Baning Nest as well on its way. I like the fact that Shibbxyz using these Overlords to generate creep between his third and natural as well, where he didn't have those creep tumors down earlier on in the game. I think that's a really switch move to make, because it means that you haven't had to skip and inject or get an extra queen, which is always going to be very beneficial. And yeah, as it stands, Shibbxyz, he's just sitting here in a spot now where he's going for exactly the same thing in the previous game. 26 Zerglings now queued up. And Distan, Stim is still only 3/4 done. His first Medevacs only just coming out now. And also, he doesn't have a single Widow Mine to try and negate the damage of those Banelings.
And the thing I want to touch on, actually, with regards to the Overlord spewing creep that you mentioned earlier, is that this is a style that Shibbxyz, to be perfectly honest, can only really get away with as long as he's actually had that advantage in the early game. Like you see here, an Overlord getting picked up on the southern portion of the map. If Shibbxyz didn't do so much damage with his 3-roach aggression early on in the game, then Distan would be in a position right now where even though he wouldn't be able to overrun Shibbxyz or anything like that, he could put a lot of pressure on a third base, he could have his marines out and about across the map, and just having Overlord sort of out spewing creep without any protection around them like that wouldn't work in games other than this series. So I think that's important to note. This isn't something that Shibbxyz can do universally every single game, but he's making the most of this game and his situation to try and get a lot of damage done.
Now, both of these drops going opposite ways around the map have been spotted, but the Mutalists are in the main base, so Shibbxyz just has to get back here to defend. He's picking off that tank, and losing that is going to mean that, obviously, the ground army can move forward. Shibbxyz, though, not even responding currently to these two drops that are coming in. He does have 30 more Lings in production, but they're all rallied across the map. This could be a bit of a problem for him, because even though he's seen on the minimap quite clearly that these drops are coming, no pullback of units.
Yep, so we'll see if Distan's able to get any sort of counter damage done here. The wall does get breached with the natural expansion, and we are being overrun with Zerg. Stop over here, and oh good god, those SCVs repairing the bunker on so low health. A couple more Banelings will clean them up, and Distan is down to 22 supply versus 115. These drops, well, to be honest, the amount of damage they have to do has to be, I want to say, biblical in nature for him to be able to come back in this game, because Shibbxyz is now up by 80 supply.
Yeah, he's just running in there, and there's GG. Good luck in the tournament. And Shibbxyz takes the series 2-0.